of four planned rulemaking advisory committee meetings for the farm stand rulemaking for the Department of Land Conservation and Development. My name is Donna Silverberg. I'm a facilitator outside of the agency who's been asked to facilitate conversations at these meetings and help you all have the conversation, help staff be able to listen by me focusing on the process during the meeting. So it's a pleasure to see you all again. It's been a busy 4 weeks. I think there was someone that I spoke to between the last meeting and this meeting who said, you know, with the legislative session going as well, this has been a really heavy lift. So I just want to acknowledge that for all of you, that there's been a lot of things going on in every arena possible. So it's been a pretty stressful time, I think, for everyone. And so I just want to name that and say, let's just take a deep breath for today. Focus on what it is that the commission asked you to focus on for this meeting, which is, to be considering the farm stand rules. Hillary's going to be walking you through all of that. Given that today what we're going to be doing is going through the draft that the staff had put out for you. I may not be following the hand up line as much as I have in the past. In the past, I followed it exactly whoever got their hand up first. What I am going to be paying attention to is how much time have people had? Has everybody had a chance to say what everybody wants to say in a limited amount of time? And we do have 20 minutes on the agenda for the public comments as well. So 15 minutes for the public comments. So, we may push into the break a little bit. We'll see what we need to do with that. Okay, so let's do a quick round of introductions. If you could just say your name and your affiliation, that would be great. I'm going to go along on my camera here, on my screen, I guess I should say, not my camera, and call you by there. So Hillary.
Hey, good morning. And if I have not met you yet, I am the current Farm and Forest Land Use Specialist for the Department of Land Conservation and Development.
Thank you. And Hillary, if you can add your DLCD to your name.
I didn't even look at my...
I seem to have lost the capacity to change names now, so I don't know what happened. Commissioner Boyer.
Good morning. I am Barbara Boyer, and I'm the liaison to LCDC, and I do not have a seat at the table today, so I will be off camera, but I'm here to listen and learn from you all. Thank you for your time.
Great, and thank you for saying that, because I didn't say that. You're following along from the past. For people who haven't been here in the past, please join us now for the introductions with your cameras on. If you are not a RAC member and not sitting at the table as a RAC member, once the introductions are gone, I invite you to turn your I'm going to ask you to turn the camera off as though you were on the kind of the walls or in the audience of the conversation. So thank you for saying that. Next on my screen is Nancy, followed by Kirsten.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Pyack. I work with Donna at DS Consulting, and I'm here to support you all in making sure that we capture everything, all your input effectively.
Thank you, Nancy. Kirsten, then Alice.
Good morning. Thanks, Donna. Good morning, everybody. Kirsten Green, Deputy Director here at the Department of Land Conservation and Development. Really looking forward to the discussion today. We're very grateful for you, everyone lending their guidance and expertise. Thanks, Donna.
Yeah, thank you. Alice, then Lindsay. Lindsay.
Hi, all. Alice Morrison with Friends of Family Farmers. I'm a RAC member. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Alice. Lindsay Ng, Alyssa.
Lindsay Ng, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Thank you.
RAC.
Alyssa, Eric.
Good morning, everyone. Alyssa Bonini, Legislative and Policy Analyst with the department. Good to be here.
Thanks, Alyssa. Eric, then Austin. Oh, no, so yeah, Eric Austin.
Good morning, everyone. Eric Walker, Hood River County Community Development Director.
Thank you. Austin, then Charles.
Hey, guys. Austin Barnes, Marion County Planning Department.
Thank you. Charles, then Peter.
Hello, Charles Bennett, Jackson County Planning RAC member.
Thank you. Peter, then Anderson.
Peter Carnegie, Carnegie Family Farm, Benton County.
Thank you. Anderson, then Sid.
Hi there, this is Anderson Beals. I'm a land use attorney in Salem, Oregon at Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt.
Thank you. Sid, then Ryan.
Sid Friedman, Friends of Yamhill County.
Thank you. Ryan, then Samantha.
Ryan Crable, Oregon Farm Bureau.
Samantha, then Mike.
Samantha Baird, General Counsel with the Oregon Property Owners Association.
Thank you. Mike, then Jeff.
Mike McCarthy, Ag for Oregon, full-time farmer in Hood River County.
Thank you. Jeff, then Emily.
Jeff Huntington, Senior Policy Advisor to Governor Kotek on natural resource issues.
Thank you. Emily, then Jim.
Emily Iverson with the Wooden Shoe Tulip Farm.
Thank you. Jim, then Lindsay Eichner. You're muted, Jim.
Jim Johnson, 1000 Friends of Oregon.
Great, thank you. Lindsay Eichner. Devin.
Lindsay Eichner, Lane County Planning.
Thank you. Devin, then Lauren.
Hi, I'm Devin Wells, President of Hood River County Farm Bureau.
Thank you. Lauren, then Matt.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Luke, small farm stand owner in Clackamas County.
Thank you. Matt.
Matt Lisignoli, pumpkin farmer, Terrebonne, Oregon, full-time farmer.
Okay, then I see Jason Hansen listed as a listener. We'll leave you as a listener. Jessica Hansen also a listen. Actually, it doesn't say. So if your camera's off, I'm going to assume you don't want to introduce yourself at this point. If you want to turn your camera on, let's get Graham for sure to say something. Tim, I see you. Yeah, go ahead. Tim Wynn. You are muted.
Yeah.
Sorry. There
Thank
you
you.
go. Uh-huh.
Yeah, Tim Wynn. I'm owner of Agri Industries DBA, the Melon Shack and Pumpkin Patch in Corvallis, Oregon.
Great. Jessica Hansen.
Sorry, I'm new to computers. I am Jessica Hansen. I'm the owner of Middle Ground Farms, where we currently full-time farm.
Great. Okay, thank you. Claire Zelinsky.
Claire Zelinsky, president of the Oregon Agritourism Partnership, also known as the Oregon Farm Loop.
And John Zelinsky, owner, Easy Orchards Farm Market.
Okay, great. Thank you. And how about Graham? Are you there? I see you. You've signed.
Yep, I am. Hey, hello, everyone. Graham Fordyce Farm.
Great.
And also a RAC member.
And a RAC member. Great. Anyone else want to introduce themselves to the RAC? Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here. I just want to remind everybody who is here, if you've been here before, then you know that I'm going to mention that some of the operating protocols that we have with this RAC is that people could join in the conversation with curiosity, to listen here, to learn as much as you possibly can, and then we will be providing the opportunity for you to share your perspectives on all of this. So I know when I first started with this group, I didn't know much about farm stands except the things that I had purchased at them. And I have learned a lot from all of you along the way. I hope you have learned a lot from each other along the way. I had been told this was going to be a tricky one, that that trying to get people into a place where you all might agree with everything that the department might be recommending to their commission might be difficult. And from what I understand in emails and phone calls and things like that, that was very true. So let's see if we can turn Jessica, we're going to turn your camera off for you, I think, if we can. No, I can't do that with this one. But if you could turn yours off, Jessica, your camera, that would be great. So I've got just my rack there. Thank you so much. So yeah, listen with curiosity, remembering that the Land Conservation and Development Commission asked you all as a RAC to consider these things together and provide advice to staff. Staff is going to take that advice and then put together a draft rule that they will then at some point take to the commission. Well, not at some point, in September. I believe they're taking it to the commission, September, October. Hillary's going to tell you more about that. And so, this is an opportunity for the sharing, for building this out. If I heard Hillary right last time and before, the staff has the task of taking what they've heard from all of you and putting language into a draft that allows the commission the commission can't go any broader in ideas about what happens with farm stands than is in the draft. They can only narrow it. So the staff has that task of having to provide enough information for the commission to make some of the policy decisions and distinguishments, if you will, that you all have been talking about. So, my understanding is that some people have seen the draft and, frankly, been very disappointed about it, right? I'm just going to call that out so that everybody knows there are some people in the room that are very disappointed. They're not with everything. I think some people are disappointed with this, some with that, some with the other. There's going to be time for you to talk to us about that. I hope that when you do that, that you can, separate the people from the problems, look at this together and see if there's a way to try and solve the problem. There's still time to be providing this feedback to the staff. And that's what this meeting is for today. So if you want to look at the operating principles, they are there on the side. If you've never been part of this, if you have been part of this, it's been good so far. So let's do it. All right. Okay, next slide, please. And then I think I'm going to turn this to you, Hillary. Is that right?
Hello.
Is this where we turn this to you?
Sure. Thank you, Donna.
Yeah.
So again, just quickly for this meeting, I'm going to talk a little bit about some context for the process and where we are in the process before we go into the meat of the proposal. And we are going to spend about an hour on the first 4 rule topics. We will then open it up for public comment, and Donna will be managing that. There will be a bit of a break. There will be some very limited opportunity for the REC to discuss public comment. And then we're going to move right into the next 4 proposal topics. And then we will, at the end of the meeting, visit the fiscal and housing impact statement and collect any feedback on those. And again, at the end, close with a review of the next steps so that we make sure to get any questions answered about the process going forward after this meeting. So I'm going to take a brief moment to review the timeline for key steps in the rulemaking process. So our charge for this rulemaking involved addressing 5 topics that were identified by the 2025 Legislative Agritourism Work Group. At our first meeting, we discussed the primary focus of a property that is hosting a farm stand. And farm stands is a primary use. We had a lot of discussion around that. Our second meeting was devoted to a discussion of promotional events that are authorized in conjunction with a farm stand and where they can take place. And that is as opposed to events that are authorized through other permitting channels like the agritourism and commercial events opportunity. We're not talking about that, but events at farm stands. Third meeting, we talked about prepared foods and processed farm products. And then we also talked about impacts to neighboring farms. So the key points from all of those conversations are documented in the meeting notes, and those are all posted on the rulemaking website if anyone who wants to review the content of those meetings as it's been summarized. So today we will be discussing a draft rule proposal. So this is going to be staff thoughts on what we have heard during those first 3 meetings from our RAC and from the public who's provided comments during the meeting. And we've received written comments as well. I think we have about 32 comment letters so far. And I'd like to pause and thank everyone who's taken the time to provide comments to the agency. We received a lot of creative suggestions and ideas to consider. And then after this meeting, we'll ask for any additional comments or feedback on that fiscal and housing impacts statement to be submitted prior to the end of the day on July 25th. After July 25th, the agency may make some adjustments to the proposals that we're going over today based on the feedback and those additional comments. In August, the proposal, the agency recommendations, we'll go through an internal agency review process and review by the Department of Justice. We will finalize that proposal, and then on September 1st, the Secretary of State will issue a notice of proposed rulemaking. It's a kind of complicated document, but it's going to contain the agency's recommended rule proposal, and I commit to forwarding that to you all when it comes out. And that is the rule proposal in the Secretary of State's notice that's going to be considered by the Land Conservation and Development Commission, or LCDC. So it is important to note and stress that LCDC makes the final decision on that language. The commission may make adjustments to that language from what's proposed in the notice. They may choose not to address topics that are in that recommendation at all. They may choose not to adopt language. But as Donna said earlier, they cannot add new topics that are not included in the notice. So anything that is not in the agency's recommendation cannot be added by the commission during that hearings process. So any comments or perspectives from this RAC that we choose not to integrate into the agency's rule recommendation, we will note that in our staff report to LCDC for the September rulemaking hearing. That rulemaking hearing will be either September 25th or 26th. And at the September hearing, LCDC is going to review and listen to public testimony and consider the recommended rule changes. And you all will also have an opportunity to provide written and verbal comment during the LCDC hearings process as a member of public in September and all the way up to the close of public comment period, which is going to be the end of the day on November 7th at 5 o'clock. So the public comment period is going to be open for quite some time still on this rulemaking when we get into that next phase. After November 7th, no additional public comment will be taken. And the final adoption hearing for the rulemaking is going to be scheduled for December. So that'll be either December 4th or December 5th. And there won't be any public testimony at that meeting. So again, no public comment after November 7th, but we still got several months of opportunity for people to provide their thoughts and feedback on this. And again, I'm committing to forward to the RAC all of that LCDC meeting information as it is published. So are there any questions from the RAC on the schedule and the next steps where we are today in that process? No. All right, let's move into it then.
Yeah, let's get after it, as they say, right?
Right, let's get after it, as they say. So,
so go back, if you can, just go back to that charge one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, so the RAC charge from the commission was the members of the RAC will consider potential changes to Oregon administrative rules concerning farm stands, looking at these points that are on the right here. So primary use of the property, activities that promote the sale of farm products, the farm operation itself, or agriculture, promotional activities outside and inside farm stand structures, prepared foods with a direct tie to the farm operation of the local agricultural area, an impact on neighboring farms. So that's been the charge to the RAC. All right, that's the agendas we've been trying to work through have been on all of those topics. And you all have done a wonderful job having conversations here and sending those comments in. Yeah. So take it away, Hillary. I just wanted to just reinforce we have a lot of new people online. So I want to make sure everybody understands that part.
And we do have a lot of people online. So I'm going to pause for a moment to stress something that's really important that we've talked about every single meeting. And just for clarity, I'll say it again. So exclusive farm use zones are reserved for farm use, and those non-farm uses that have been authorized by the legislature. So those uses are listed in Chapter 215 of statute, and they're divided into two buckets. So that first bucket are called sub 1 uses, and those are all of the uses that the legislature felt were compatible with farm operations in the surrounding area, subject to the standards in rule. So as long as the standards are followed, they felt that they would be appropriate for an agricultural environment. Those are sub 1 uses. Then there are sub 2 uses, or second category of uses, which the legislature felt may or may not be appropriate for the agricultural environment. For those uses, if you want a permit for that kind of a use, you need to provide findings demonstrating that you're not going to significantly negatively impact farm and forest operations in the surrounding area, the cost of those practices. So those sub 2 uses are usually reviewed as conditional uses, and they require public notification. There's an opportunity for the public to provide comments on them. And they have to demonstrate that essentially they're going to be a good neighbor. Farm stands are a sub 1 use, right? So a farm stand does not have to demonstrate that it is not going to have a negative impact on the surrounding area. And there's assumption that it is appropriate for the agricultural environment, that it's not going to impact farm operations in the surrounding area. So again, that's an important concept to keep in mind as we talk about farm stands. All right, so as I said earlier, we've received about 32 public comment letters so far, some from RAC members, some from the general public. We've listened to our RAC and to verbal testimony from the public over the course of the last 3 meetings since May. And considering that feedback, the agency identified 8 areas where our rules might be updated to address some of the concerns that were raised during these discussions and raised in written comments received by the agency. So one of the, and I'm going to switch my share really quickly now to screen 1 and this share. Hopefully, this one. There we go. So the first topic that we are considering is language that clarifies when a farm stand is a farm use and when it requires a farm stand permit. So there seemed to be a lot of support among RAC members for clarifying when those sales activities are considered a farm use under that statutory definition. So farm use is allowed without permit review in exclusive farm use zones. Yeah. And when a farm stand permit is required. During that conversation, we heard the desire on the part of RAC members to clarify, particularly when educational activities and tours are permissible as a farm use that doesn't require a permit. We also heard from a lot of planners on how they make that distinction. And we received a number of written comments on the topic with suggestions. And most of the feedback on this topic was actually fairly consistent. So what we are proposing is to adopt language that states a temporary structure that's designed only and used only for the sale of farm crops and livestock grown on the farm operation is not a farm stand for purposes of this rule. That means it's a farm use under 215-203. Low intensity infrequent activities, such as educational farm tours, for which no fee is charged or collected, do not require a farm stand approval. And then we've also proposed language to clarify what a temporary structure is. So that would be a tent, a canopy, chairs, benches, tables that are sited and used on the property for no more than 90 days in a calendar year. So,
hey, Hillary.
Yeah.
Can I ask you on your screen to make that a little bit bigger? I'm seeing people kind of leaning in.
Are people squinting
yeah,
a little bit?
It looks like they're squinting a little bit. I could be misreading the language, but it looked to me like people were much
there
better.
we go.
Is that better for everybody? Can you read that easier? Great. Thanks, Charles. Okay.
So essentially, if you are a farmer and you are, have a tent and a table on the sort of like in your driveway and you are selling, produce that you're growing on your farm, you do not need a farm stand approval. That's considered a farm use. And you can go about your way. And that's now, we are proposing to clarify that in rule. If you are, providing an educational tour on your property, hosting kids, you're not charging a fee, it's not a commercial activity, then we're also saying that that's a farm use. You don't need any permit approval or review for that. So with that introduction, I'm seeing hands raised already, Donna. And so I'd love to get feedback on this particular language, and particularly if you have adjustments to this language.
Okay. Well, it seems like it would be two things might be useful to you. You know, adjustments, and if you don't have and you have two ways of telling us adjustments. You can use your chat and put some adjustments that you'd like to see in chat, or if you say I like this change, right? Something like that. So and if you have questions, let's look at that. Alice, your hand popped up, so I know I'm doing that on this one. I'm going to get the hands that are up first. I will be tracking to make sure the rest of you who don't get your hands up fast have a chance to say something if you want to. Alice?
Thanks. I want to clarify if I see a little bit of an inconsistency between this change in language and the language change in the prepared food section, where this change considers your farm product to not include like the farm direct producer process exemption things. I'm going to be talking about that a lot because it's really, really important to our members. A lot of them really, really rely on that on that law for their farm business planning. And those things are considered farm crops or livestock in the process versus prepared section, but are not considered farm products here. So like, just to clarify, when we advise people on this, are we saying that if you have farm direct producer processed exemption products that are considered processed farm crops present, you do need, even if you have a temporary structure, you would need to apply for a permit?
So the definition of farm crops and livestock for the purpose of this section of rule applies to everything within this section of rule. Alice.
Okay.
Does that help?
Can you say out loud that if you have jam under the farm direct producer process exemption present, under what's written here, you would need to apply for a permit?
So in rule, farm crops and livestock is defined to include processed farm products as well. So a temporary structure that's designed used only for the sale of farm crops and livestock, including processed farm crops and livestock that are grown on the farm operation, then it's not a farm stand for the purpose of that rule. So Alice, if you're selling your kimchi that's made from the cabbage that's grown on your property, and under the farm direct rules, you have to grow it, process it, and sell it yourself, right, is my understanding. Then you would not need a farm stand permit the way that this definition is structured.
Okay, great. I think I just got confused with the reference to processed foods versus processed agricultural products later in the thing. So I'm glad we could clarify.
Okay. Great.
Good. That's helpful. Thank you. Thanks for that, Alice. Samantha.
I think that this definition needs quite a bit of clarity, because hearing what you just said, Hillary, I'm happy to hear that, because I don't necessarily read this way, particularly as it comes to the focus around temporary structures. So if you're selling your own farm crops, that's a farm use. That's outlined as a farm use in 215-203, irrespective of whether you're doing it in a temporary structure or a permanent structure. So when I read this rule, it makes me think that I now have to tell a farmer to go get a farm stand permit to sell their own products out of their barn, or a permanent structure, which I don't think is the intention. And that would be a pretty significant shift. So I think this could be rewritten to be more clear, to not have that be confusing. I do really appreciate throughout the rule the addressing of temporary structures and allowing that, because that is something that folks really need. So I appreciate that. The other part of the concern that I have here is the focus on not charging a fee. I also agree that if you're doing things for a non-commercial purpose, a recreational purpose, or anything else on your own property, I don't think you should have to have land use approval for that at all. Where we had raised concerns around educational farm tours was around really those that do need to charge a fee. And I have some comments about that later on, but I feel like we could have been more protective of ag education in these rules, when you're charging a fee for that or doing that for free.
Okay. All right, thank you. And, so we'll stay on these, we're gonna try and stay on whatever is on your screen on that issue. Thank you for that added feedback about some of the other things as well, Sam. I just want to make sure that we hear kind of issue by issue from everybody on this. So thank you for that, Samantha. Mike, Austin, Sid, Jim.
Yeah, thank you. To me, temporary structure is no different than a permanent structure in terms of the activities and impact in the area. And it really, I don't have any problem with farm stands and temporary structures if they are small, but temporary structure is not stated as to the size and the number of activities. So you could have one that was 100 by 200 feet, and there are temporary structures like that could house 200 people and 200 cars, and there's no limitation here. And I can't imagine that those shouldn't be permitted as a farm stand if they are that size. So there's no size and scale limitations. There have to be.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that, Mike. Austin, and then Sid.
Thank you. I am generally in agreement with these clarifications. I think Marion County would be. This is mostly in line with the type of guidance we try to provide people that, if you're just selling your products in a raw form or doing U-Pick, that generally does not require a farm stand. But I do think those 2 points that were just brought up are good clarifications to consider. Do we want to have size limitations on this? And then do we want to allow permanent structures to be used? Because as we know, a lot of people are going to be using some portion of a barn or existing permanent structure for some of the farm stand operation. I don't think I would have issues with including permanent structures in this, that if you're just selling your farm crops out of a permanent structure, you don't necessarily need a farm stand permit. I'd like to hear maybe what other people have to say if they foresee other issues that might come up. But I do think those 2 issues that were raised would be good to further discuss and add clarifications here.
Super. Thanks for that, Austin. And thanks, for people who are just joining us for the first time. I also, if you can't tell by how people introduce themselves, we have a mix of people here who have farm stands, small, medium, large farm stand owners and operators. We have people here who are county planners. Austin is one of them, whose job is to enforce these, to enforce these particular rules that DLCD puts out there. We have people from other agencies, like Lindsay from the Department of Agriculture, who shares some looking at all of this. We have property owner representatives. We have farm representatives. We have overall land representatives as well. So I just want to let folks know that there are a variety of different perspectives that are being shared here. And I know the agency has been very interested to hear from everyone. And everyone has been appreciative of hearing from the counties of what are the struggles that you have as you're trying to enforce some of these things. So thanks for that, Austin. Let's move to Sid, then Jim, then Emily, then Lauren.
Agree with Mike regarding the need for limitations on scale.
Okay.
And I have a question regarding clarification. When the rule reads temporary structures that are sited and used on the property, is the intention, is that, I'm not sure, sited or used, sited and used, I'm not sure, does that mean the structure can remain year round so long as it's only used for 90 days? Or I just need some clarification on that.
Thank you, Sid. So cited and used was added to avoid a situation where structure might be stored on the property and cause concern. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thanks. That's Sid. Jim, Emily, Lauren.
Thank you. First, I state I generally support this. I think staff's done a good job here. I think it's really good to clarify clarify when a farm stand is a farm use. And I think it's important to remember here when the legislature first adopted the exclusive farm use zone, farm stands were not listed. Basically, the definition of farm use there was, and it talked about the sale of crops as being a farm use. We can't consider the sale of all crops of farm use after what the legislature did by singling out farm stands as a sub one use. So if you are utilizing a farm stand to sell products, you need to get the farm stand permit. It's not a farm use. That's why it's so important. What staff's doing here is to clarify what is a farm stand and what is a farm use. If you've got a barn and you're operating it to sell all kinds of things out of it, just because it's a farm structure doesn't mean it's now not a farm stand also if it hits a certain scale. I'm not saying you can't sell out of a barn, but if you're selling multiple products, prepared foods and the like, you should probably be getting a farm stand approval in addition to that. So it's important to recognize the legislature saw a problem with sale of certain farm products and created the section called farm stands. That was not in the original EFU statute. I'd also like to generally, I support what Mike had to say about scale. A scale can become the real problem when we're talking about impacts and such to surrounding farming operations and neighborhoods and the like. But overall, I'd say staff, you're going in the right direction here.
Thanks, Jim. Emily, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to go on and say from a farm operator and farmland, a land owner that having the permanent structure would probably be a benefit. I do understand scale does come into effect here and that there is a scale point to where a farm stand permit would probably need to be applied. But if we wanted to open a roadside stand in a corner of our barn, just to sell grapes, for example, I don't see why that should be an issue and that permanent structure should be in there. And I also know quite a few of the farm organizations that I'm a part of or the tourism organizations I've been a part of, they want to pay the farm operator for a tour. So for example, Mount Hood Territory does FAM tours and they go to different tourism businesses across the region and they want compensate the farm for their time. I think in situations like that, there should be some ability, again, within scale in which the farmer should be compensated just for their time. But I don't know how to maybe go about that further.
Okay, thanks for that, Emily. Lauren, and then I'm going to go to Inga because Sam, we've heard from you once, and I want to make sure I'm hearing from people who we haven't heard from first before I go back. So, Lauren.
Thanks, Donna. I just wanted to seek one point of clarification. So it says grown on the farm operation. What if you have a cooperative agreement with other farmers and it's still within the, confines of local, but it's not that particular farm property that the goods are grown on? Would that be excluded with this proposed rulemaking? That's my question.
Okay, so let's let Hillary answer that, and then we'll come. And it sounds like you had more to say, so we'll pop right back to Lauren. Hang on one second, Hillary.
So that's when you get a farm stand permit. So a farm stand permit allows you to sell products produced on your farm or farms in the local agricultural area, which we'll talk about next. Includes currently the state of Oregon and adjacent counties in other states.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the comment that I just hope is heard are two things. One, we have farmers that are struggling to make a living farming and looking at needing to do other things or sell their farm. And we have hungry people in our state that don't have access to fresh and local products. So I just wanted to leave those two comments with everyone.
Okay, great. Yeah. Thank you, Lauren. Inga, then Sam, and then I think I'm going to see if there's anyone else, and then we're going to press to the next topic because I know we want to make sure that we work through these in our time together. So Inga, please, next.
I don't think it's really important to, well, I should say I should maybe separate out temporary structure and permanent structure. I would be fine with the farm stand itself being a permanent structure And I think the scale is going to be limited by the amount of product that is grown on the property and how much they have to sell at any one time. Don't see these farm stands itself becoming so outrageously huge that it's going to be an issue for anyone. But I think the temporary structure here is that, Hillary, is that for the educational activities that you're talking about? Or so I think maybe you're adding two items together that should be separated out.
Hey, thanks, Inga. The definition of temporary structures for the whole body of the rule, right? So it will apply to this distinction between farm use and farm stands, and it also applies to, I think there's also a reference in the promotional activities sort of area where we're talking about an allowance, but we'll get to that a little bit later on in the conversation. But this would also gets into the building codes issue with the ag building exemption from structural review as well. So we are in choosing to limit this to temporary structures. We are also trying to address that issue. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And if you have more feedback on that, Inga, go ahead and put it in the chat. All right. Sam and then Peter. Sam, you were next. Samantha and then Peter.
Sure, I'm just wondering if it is possible for the planners to just clarify before their comments whether or not they're speaking in their personal capacity or on behalf of the county in which they work for. It's a little confusing, and I think that would be helpful to understand.
Okay, I've been assuming that they've been speaking on behalf of their county, so that all of you are speaking on, not in your personal capacity, but all of you were brought in here based on your capacity inside of something, whether it's an organization, a particular farm that you are running, farm stand that you are running. And I think our assumption has been you're representing that throughout. So thanks for asking that question, Samantha, and we'll make sure they do. Peter and Ryan.
In regards to the temporary structure, I don't have a problem, using existing permanent structures, but just, you could phrase it so temporary structures or permanent structures used temporarily for the sale of farm products.
Great, thank you. Thank you for providing a suggestion of how to fix it, right? So, and I want to encourage everybody to do that. If you've got ways that you see that they can change this in a way that fits not only your needs, but the needs that you've heard from others during this process, they're all ears for all of it. But that's going to be really helpful for them. So thanks for that, Peter. Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah, a question and maybe a comment to follow, depending on what the answer is. But I'm curious how we arrived at the 90-day threshold for temporary structures.
Yeah, great question.
Thank you, Ryan. And so this is a 90 days, could be a 3-month period, consecutive 90 days. It could be weekends, a series of 3-day weekends throughout the year. And so this is just something that we came up with. We've had proposals for 90 days, we had for 180, a variety of sort of like different proposals here. But the way that this is worded, if they're used for no more than 90 days, then then they are considered a farm use.
Okay. And were there any recommendations for less than 90 days?
No.
Okay, because I think that the I think 90 days is doesn't maybe accurately reflect what like a typical harvest season and stuff like that. So I think it would be beneficial if we figure out a way to maybe index that to other factors associated with agricultural production.
And so do you have a recommendation on that, Ryan? What
Well, I
might-
think it's going to be different based on the area, right? I mean,
Okay.
if you look at the harvest calendar, and so many operations are diversified. So I guess, yeah, a hard cap, it's no surprise that my comments would kind of be directing away from a one size fits all approach. And I feel like a 90-day kind of approach is kind of one size fits all.
Okay. All right. So looking at the harvest calendar that a particular farm might have, they might have winter crops, they might have summer crops, they might have spring and fall crops. Limiting it to 90 days limits what they can do there. All right. Okay. And if people have suggestions for how they might do that, it is I think everybody is seeing that the needle that they're trying to thread here is small to meet everybody's interests here. So it's a tough one. So provide that feedback in the chat if you've got it. Matt, then Charles, and then I think we're going to move to the next one, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry to break in, but I think your chat is disabled. At least that's what it's showing on my screen.
Chat is disabled?
Mine too. I was just trying to do chat and I couldn't get in.
And Don, I think that, excuse me, this is Kirsten. I think typically so that there's not a side conversation, I thought that we had disabled it for RAC members, but they would use raise hands, or did you want it?
No, we'd had it available and they could write to me personally.
Oh, right, to you, exactly.
And then I could, yeah, but that apparently that's not happening. So
the host. Okay, so we'll work on getting it back to the host. Thank you.
well, the host is Casaria, so
I think you're co-host, so that would work. It'd be all us co-hosts. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry about that. We'll see if we can fix that while we're running here. Since I've been asking you to put stuff in the chat over and over again. Sorry about that. Thank you. So Matt, sorry.
Yeah, I could have done it with a chat. I just concur with Peter Carnegie as far as permanent structures appears in temporary. I think it's a great way to go. We don't want to have full-time structures dedicated for that, but it's nice to be able to use what you have available.
Okay. Matt, and you're a large farm stand operator, is that right?
Yeah, seasonally we're 1 month, October, and that's it.
Okay. Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure I got that right. Thank you. Charles, Jackson County.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, Ryan asked if there were, in my comments, we put that temporary structures are 30 days. But we understand that, that doesn't meet with the agricultural seasons and stuff like that. So we were comfortable with the 90, but I just we did suggest or say that our temporary language and our definition is 30 days. So
okay, so this would be a departure for you that would need to be very clear if it's there. Testing, yeah. Okay, so I'm starting to get from staff anyway, if somebody could chat with me who's a member of the RAC.
Yeah, if they could chat just to
me.
To Donna, yeah. The test.
Charles Bennett, hello. Hi. Hey, thanks everybody. Okay, we got it. We got the test. Thank you.
Mine sorry, mine still says disabled.
Mine too.
That's so weird. All right, we're going to keep moving with the comments while people are trying to sort that on the back end.
I'm not sure there's much else we can do, Donna. I do apologize. So Zoom shows us that it's enabled. So RAC members who aren't able to chat to Donna probably will just need to raise hands. I apologize. Sorry, the technology is failing us here. We can do a lot hybrid, but we can't get in the back end of Zoom. It shows that it is enabled to chat to host. So I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that. So let's see. It was Matt. It was Charles. Jim, your hand is up. And I just want to note that I was going to move us on.
This is just because I can't chat. And it's just a quick comment.
A quick chat. Go.
In response to the 90-day question that came up, I would just remind everybody that if you exceeded 90 days, you could apply for a farm stand permit. And this is about intensity and such. So if you needed to go past 90 days, you could get the farm stand permit instead of being considered a farm use.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add on some clarity because I think there is some confusion here of what this is really saying. Like what this is saying is if you're just selling farm products, you're not doing promotional events and you're not selling retail items and you're using just a tent temporarily 90 days, you don't have to go through a go get local land use approval. If you want to do promotional events or you want to sell retail incidental items, you're going to have to go through and get local land use approval through one of various ways to do that. And if apparently you are using a temporary structure more than 90 days, you also need to go get land use approval to do that. I just wanted to provide that clarity because I think I'm getting some texts and stuff of some confusion about that.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for passing that along.
Thank
Hillary?
you, Samantha. And I would just also add on there that 90 days in a calendar year, that could be 2 days a month. That doesn't necessarily need to be 90 consecutive days. All right. Let's move on to the second topic.
And while I do that, I'll just note that there was some feedback there about how you might be able to streamline that a little or clarify that a little bit more so that there aren't questions that people have looking at it. You know, these folks have the benefit of having a conversation with you about what did you all mean about that? So now getting some clarification on that for this particular issue. So moving to the next one, Hillary, you go.
Right. So for a local agricultural area, so a farm stand, you know, when it's permitted as a farm stand, you can sell farm crops and livestock that are grown on your property, and you can sell farm crops and livestock, including processed farm crops and livestock that are grown from the local agricultural area. So you can sell your own farm crops, livestock, and your processed crops and livestock, and you can also sell farm crops and livestock and processed crops and livestock that are grown in the local agricultural area. Rule currently defines local agricultural area as the entire state of Oregon and counties from neighboring states that are adjacent to the county where the farm stand permit is located. So this means, for example, a farmer in Union County could sell wine that's produced in Yamhill County as a farm crop. So no income limitation. So we received a lot of comments on this, and there's a lot of discussion on this. Some RAC members felt that this definition is overly broad and not aligned with the original legislative intent for farm stand authorization. Other RAC members expressed appreciation for the current definition, noting that this broad definition allows them to offer products year-round, keep people employed. To be, honest, staff's inclination is to recommend that we maintain the current definition that LCDC adopted in 2006. However, we did receive quite a large volume of written comments suggesting a more narrow definition. So we're proposing a very slight change to the definition so that LCDC may consider all of the opinions on this topic. As Donna noted earlier, like if there is no suggestion on this section of rule in the proposal that is noticed by the Secretary of State that limits LCDC, they can't consider it. So we were proposing to change the language from a county that is adjacent to the county hosting a farm stand to areas within adjacent states that border the county and is within 5 miles of the state boundary, or 50 miles of the state boundary, sorry. So any comments on this?
Hang on just a second. So I am noting who is talking and who hasn't had a chance to talk yet. I want to make sure that folks who have not, so I just want to double check. Eric Walker, Graham, Justin, Lindsay Ing, the Lindsays, I should say. And that's, I think, and if Mark has joined us, I don't know if he has. Do any of you want to say something about this before I jump back in the line with folks who have said something? Graham, I see you turned your camera on.
Yes, I really like actually the current definition, the current rule. I think that's nicely applicable and kind of hits the nail on the head. So I would kind of recommend not doing anything else with it. I just really like it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Graham. And Lindsay, I see your hand up. Lindsay Ing.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out for consideration, I think that a lot of our Eastern Oregon farmers, they don't have access to the population center markets. So this may limit their ability to have their products sold to the metro areas. I think that that's a pretty important piece. I'll use Hermiston watermelons, for example, right? We grow a lot of watermelons in that area of the state, but they're much more likely to want to access the metro area than just their local area. So if they can partner with a farm stand, the current definition allows them to do that.
Okay. And the suggested, the possible language here is the language you were talking about, Hillary, that is just there so that LCDC can consider it. The staff recommendation is not to narrow it that far. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the staff recommendation would be maintain the language as it is, but we did hear a large volume of comment suggesting that we narrow this particular section. The proposed language here is not a significant limitation. It would still include the entire state of Oregon, areas in Washington, Idaho, Nevada, or California that border the Oregon County in which the farm stand is located and are within 50 miles of the state boundary. So it's a slight limitation.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I just want to make sure that was clear. If you do send a chat to me, I can then send it to everyone. So for those of you who are doing chat or want to do chat or want to say something but don't want to take the time and want to put it there, we can do multiples at the same time. So thanks for that, Lindsay. And now let's go Jim, Sid, Alice, Mike, and Lauren.
Thank you. I actually support the recommendation of staff because let's just take California, for example, which is an adjacent state. It's how many hundreds of miles long down to San Diego, and you can bring in crops from down to the San Diego and sell it as a local crop. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So that's why I like the 50 miles within the state boundary that's proposed. But as a bottom line, I do want to make sure that there's some change proposed here, if for no other reason than to allow us to make this argument during public testimony in front of the commission so they can consider this.
Okay. All right. So if others of you share the same sentiment that Jim just shared, I want to urge you just to say ditto, Jim, and we'll move on because we do have a lot to keep getting through here. And I'm not feeling stressed. I'm just trying to manage this time delicately. Sid, Alice, Mike, Lauren, Lindsay, is your hand still up? Or are you done? Okay, I'll lower it for you. And then Samantha. Okay, Sid.
I'm concerned that either this definition or the current definition, when read in conjunction with the proposed rule on processed food versus prepared food, would allow a farm stand to sell nothing but, let's say, 6 packs of Ninkasi or Deschutes beer, or sell nothing but bottles of wine produced in Yamhill County or Jackson County. And I don't think that's the intention of the rules in combination, but I'm concerned that that will be the result.
Okay, thank you. Alice?
Just to Sid's point, I do think that the definitions that we see here do require you to have product from your farm in the farm stand to get the permit also. So I understand the concern, but I just want to point that out. I made some comments in a previous RAC meeting about wanting a more narrow definition. I got some very direct feedback from my base that we should stick with the current definition. So I want to, on the record, say that. I think that we should explore whether or not there should be a requirement of like a direct farmer to farmer relationship between businesses that are working together. The intent of the farm stand is for farmers to bring their product to market. And so I understand the local agricultural area definition. Something that was raised by my members is, should it be a requirement that you are working farmer to farmer to bring those other products in, instead of, for example, going through a wholesale distributor and making a wholesale order that is then dropped off at your farm stand of products that are grown in Oregon. Not sure if that's something that we have the bandwidth to discuss here, but it was brought up in my community meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, Alice. Thank you for both of those things. Mike.
Yeah, I think the definition should be definitely narrowed. I would like to see it be within 25 miles of the farm. I think that would be more appropriate to the intent of this. The intent of a farm stand, supposedly by the people that want to have them, is to increase the profitability of their own operation. And what we're doing is making it extremely vague. I think most planners would admit that that definition makes it impossible to enforce. There's no way of knowing what's being sold at a farm stand anymore or where it came from. So I really think it's unenforceable, the language, and it's really not beneficial to the farmers in the area that are suffering the impacts of the farm stands around them. And that's what we would hope, is it would benefit those farmers right next door who are suffering the impacts from having that farm stand, the traffic, the trespass, etc. So I think it should be definitely narrowed and actually make it helpful to the farms in the actual area.
Okay, thank you for that. Lauren?
Thanks, Donna. I was in support of how this was written originally, and I don't support the 50-mile addition. And I just would encourage people to consider Klamath, Lake, and Harney counties, where you can drive for 50 miles and sometimes not see another person or town. So being able to bring products from the neighboring county does restrict it from, bringing crops up from Southern California. I think how it was originally written was perfect.
Okay. All right, thanks for that. And Samantha, then Eric.
I agree with Lauren. I support the existing rule. I don't think that this rule should be changed. And I disagree with Mike. I think, especially in Hood River, you have a lot of farmers who are maybe growing fruit on their farm, but then they are shipping it up to Washington to be packed and prepared and distributed. So the fruit that has been shipped up to Washington to be packed, prepared, and distributed should then be able to be sold at a farm stand in Oregon. That's all a part of the integrated process of actually how our agricultural economy works. And I don't think that we should be clarifying anything to make things being more difficult for that.
Okay, thank you. And Eric, I see that your hand is down.
I went ahead and lowered it. I'll save my comments for later. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. And Mike, I want to make sure this is a new comment and not a response to what Sam just said, because I want to make sure everybody, that the agency is getting the feedback that they need. New comment?
It was a comment to Samantha's, and if you won't allow that, but it's really not correct what she said. So it's still grown by the grower, and if it's packed in, doesn't matter where, it's still grown by the grower, they can sell it at their farm stand.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, sorry, I lost the feed there for a couple minutes, so I missed a little bit of the discussion. But we would be in support of the way that the language is already in place. We don't see any need for any change there.
Okay. Okay. Hillary, anyone you want to ask specifically on this one?
No, if that's it for hands, we can move into the next topic.
Okay. And I did put into the chat there are two Matthews. There's a Matthew who's on the rack and a Matthew who's not, whose last name isn't there. I don't know who it is. That Matthew sent me a note. And I just want to let everybody know who's visiting us today that we're really trying to hear from RAC members and letting RAC members talk to RAC members right now. So when the public comment comes, then I can share that for you. And if you add your last name, that's going to help us as well, or your affiliation. Okay, go ahead, Hillary. Thank you.
All right, so the next topic are retail items. So at a farm stand, you can sell incidental retail items that promote farm products. And it's subject to an income limitation. So 25% of the sales at the farm stand, no more than 25% of the farm stand sales can be from those retail items and promotional fees. Our first meeting was a discussion on the primary focus of a farm stand. How do you ensure that the focus of a farm stand is actually the sale of farm crops and livestock? And, I do want to note what, Alice mentioned earlier, that in order to operate a farm stand, you must sell, some product that's produced on your property. There is no sort of requirement that be, a majority of what you sell or even a small portion of what you sell, right? Just as long as you're selling something that you produce on site. And we received a number of proposals, a variety of different types of proposals on this sort of primary use topic. How does farming on the property actually play into the farm stand approval? How do you ensure that a farm stand is, selling farm crops and livestock? We received proposals that we're not considering, like requiring that 75% of the farm products sold at the farm stand be produced on site. We did receive some proposals from RAC members and the public that clarifying the relationship between incidental retail items so that the farm stand and the farm crops and livestock sold at the farm stand might be one way to ensure that the sale of farm products is the focus of a farm stand development. So this language here, it would prevent the sale of products that do not have a clear relationship with farm crops and livestock being sold. So for example, Pokemon cards, I like to call this the Pokemon card rule provision. You could not sell Pokemon cards at the farm stand because there's no clear or direct relationship between the Pokemon cards and the farm crops and livestock being sold at the farm stand. We also had suggestions during that conversation that we give examples of the kinds of things that can be sold. And so we are providing some examples here, like vases for flowers grown on site. So you have a U-pick flower operation, you can sell vases for those flowers or baskets for those flowers. If you have a pumpkin operation, carving kits for pumpkins are sort of a retail incidental item that have a direct relationship with the farm crops being sold. T-shirts advertising the farm. We had some comments that had a lot more specificity, and as we were considering that, we felt like it may also be beneficial to provide an agency guidance document that goes into a little bit more detail rather than putting that level of detail into rule. So that is the sort of story behind this particular proposal. So we'll turn it over, and I think Inga has her hands up first.
She does, yeah. Thank you, and thanks for that background. I think what you're starting to hear from people is the more background of your thinking that you can share about what is written here, the more input they can give you about how either that they like it or that how to make it clearer to mean what you're hoping it means. So thanks for that. Inga, you first.
Very simply, this would help me apply this in my county and explain this to folks coming in. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm gonna Sam, go ahead.
I think that as drafted, this is a little bit confusing, especially in light of the guidance. I think there's potentially some conflict here, some confusion. But more than anything, I think that this is gone a step too far of being overly narrow. So it's creating like an additional level of restriction that I don't think is warranted. at the first rack, I felt like our group had a kind of rallied around the idea and an understanding that like we could clarify these rules. We could clarify them to be more restrictive, or we could clarify them to give farmers more opportunity. And this is one of the examples where I feel like we've clarified things to be more restrictive. And so I don't generally support it as drafted. I'm not opposed to creating a definition. I just think that this, from a policy standpoint, creates more restrictions. Like, I'm just going to go off the top of my head, but like if you generally sell produce at your farm stand, can you now not sell a mug that has a cow on it? Because you're not a dairy, you don't sell, or maybe, so that's one example, but that selling that mug with the cow on it is related to Oregon agriculture, and it's related to products grown in the local agricultural area that you could sell through your farm stand. So, and I also don't understand, I do think it poses an enforcement kind of burden of like, are the planners going to have to go in and take inventory of every retail item being sold and then cross-reference that with which products are actually being sold, if a complaint comes in? So I feel like this potentially poses some additional barriers and hurdles, and we could be clarifying this in a more open way.
Okay, great. Thanks, Samantha. Austin, Mike, Graham.
Yeah, I think this would be a helpful clarification. This, would provide, more clarity on when we're talking to people at the counter, what they can and can't, or what they should or shouldn't be selling. And I think it clarifies, typically, and this happens in like when you get into commercial and conjunctions as well in the EFU zones and whatnot, is that the incidental items, or that 25%, becomes a bucket for literally anything. And so this provides more guidance to say, well, what should that incidental 25% look like? And, how can we really tie it to that farm operation or that farm stand? So I think this is helpful, and it kind of keeps the farm stand more tied to its local agriculture area or what it is producing.
Great. All right, so we've heard from a couple planners that way. We've got Mike, we've got Eric, who's also a planner, then Graham. Go ahead, Mike.
I'm unmuting here. Sorry to be so slow. I think this is a definite improvement, and I think staff did a good job on this. The one thing I would comment, though, is it has been extremely impossible to try to calculate the 25%. And I think the planners would probably agree with me. We have a great planning department in Hood River County who has struggled with this. They may comment on that, but I think this clarification is going to be very helpful going down the road to reduce the chances that counties have to spend a lot of time trying to do the 25% calculation.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that, Mike. Eric?
Thank you, Donna. So yeah, as Austin mentioned, as we implement farm stands, the 25% rule is essentially just a catch-all for anything that's not a farm product that's being sold. The one question that I would have as it relates to prepared food items is that typically prepared food items falls into that 25% category as a retail incidental item. And so how would that be evaluated as part of this new definition?
Thank you, Eric. So in that case, those prepared food items would have to have a direct relationship with the farm crops and livestock being sold at the farm stand. So your sandwich would need to feature, produce like that was, being sold at the farm stand, for example, or your burrito or pie or whatever it is that's being sold as a prepared food item, subject to the income limitation. It would need to have some sort of relationship with what's being sold there. But that's a great question.
Okay, good. And I did get, but I'm having a hard time cutting and pasting it while I'm trying to manage the hands as well. From Jim Johnson, that 1,000 Friends supports this proposed amendment regarding incidentals. Graham, Alice, Sid, Lindsay.
All right. I really liked what Sam said that this is a further restriction on farms. And, there's a lot of farmers out there struggling. So I don't think we should be adding any further restrictions on them. Also, Hillary mentioned the Pokemon card thing, and of course that should not be allowed. But I think oftentimes what happens in these farm stands is they know better. They know better than to sell these sorts of items because they know they're not going to sell. A lot of farm stores that, mine, for example, or others in the area, sure, they're selling some stuff that are connected to ag, but in a pretty general way, like dishes. I mean, they're connected to ag in that, you buy your produce and now you put it on your beautiful dishes. And so in a lot of ways, there are a lot of things connected to ag. But a lot of farm stores also just serve as places to buy beautiful, locally crafted items. And that also supports the local economy greatly and also helps the farmer and betters the experience for your customers. That's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Graham. Alice, Sid, Lindsay, and the Lindsays. Ing Van Eichner. Alice, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up again, the farm direct producer process exemption. I think that the listing on the first example of the retail incidental items may create confusion between what is concerned incidental and what is considered a processed farm product. So I would love to have some clarity in these definitions here so it can't be interpreted differently by different planning offices. I think I'll keep bringing it up because it's really important to the people that I serve, that those things be considered agricultural products if they're produced under the strict guidelines of the farm direct producer process exemption. And then my other comment is that I received a lot of feedback from my community meetings about, yes, folks do want to see farm stands be all the incidental items be related to the farm or the farmer. So there are incidents like places where we've talked about folks who are the owner operator of the farm, they are running the farm, they are involved in the day-to-day management, and they also have an artistic outlet and want to sell their art in their farm stand within the 25% as an incidental item. I've also had things like the pottery that was just described, of especially folks who are concerned about like harvesting wild clay from the local agricultural area from the farm itself. And even though that's not related to a farm product, that is like a product that is related to the natural world of the farm. So I think that we should consider art that is related to the natural ecosystem of the farm as a related product. I also think that there are a couple of farmers who I work with who want to be able to sell like things related to their cultural identity. I don't know how to define that in this, but those are just things that I received in feedback. But I agree that having a bigger focus on related to the farm itself and the person operating the farm is a good thing, and that all of this should fit within the 25%. I think that's it.
Okay. And there was a ditto that came into me. I think it's pretty ditto-y from Samantha about it would be great if DLCD could clarify that prepared foods fall within the incidental item definition, because it's not clear. So it seemed like it was close to what I was just hearing Alice talking about as well. So I thought I'd throw that one out there right now. Sid, and I'll post the other one that's Samantha.
I support the proposed rule change. I think it's a good clarification that will make the rule easier to enforce. I would have put it in the chat, but I still can't seem to, it's still disabled for me.
Sorry about that. Okay, great. Thank you, Sam. Sorry, Sid. Writing Samantha's name. Okay, let's go, Lindsay Ing.
Sorry, I'm still a little confused. I just wanted to clarify. So this would put in the 25%, it would limit what's allowable. So one clarification, that prepared foods would be allowable still, recommended by staff, but they would have to be in the 25% total, as well as anything within the 25% total would have to have some relationship to the crops that are being grown there. Is
Right.
that correct?
Which links to the comment from Samantha that I just posted in there. Can you sell bottles of water if you're the water
Yeah.
grown on your land?
Mhm.
Yeah. So there's some clarifying there that might be helpful. Hillary, go ahead.
Thanks. So the way that this is worded, the retail incidental items, which are subject to the 25% limitation, would need to have some sort of direct relationship with farm crops and livestock sold at the farm stand. And they are intended to promote the sale of farm crops and livestock sold at the farm stand. And so the task there would be to demonstrate, these things that you're selling, like what is the relationship between these retail incidental items and the farm crops, livestock, processed products that are being sold on site again. So that's the intention there. I do also want to note that there is an opportunity, it's pretty common for art galleries and other sort of handcraft venues to be approved as home occupations when setting exclusive farm use zones. And so regardless of whether or not you have a farm stand, there is always that opportunity to get a home occupation permit, which does have a farm impacts test associated with it if you do want to have a business that's focused on arts, crafts, and that sort of thing. So I did want to make sure that folks were aware of that as well.
Okay, so there are avenues, not necessarily right straight through as a farm use.
As a farm stand, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Hillary. I was thinking about that given our conversation earlier. So I guess my comment would just be, I think that the legislature enacted the 25% rule to ensure that farm stands were not just grocery stores. I think we've heard that quite a bit in the rack. This does to me also seem like it could cause conflict between regulators, planners, and farmers. So my only comment is really, is this, by restricting the definition, are we getting to our purpose, or are we creating potentially more conflict between regulators and the farmers that are doing that?
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Lindsay,
comfortable shoes running around. I'm Zoom meeting. I've got it.
We're gonna mute that person. Good. Lindsay Eichner, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. I also support trying to add in some clarification about the prepared foods, and I'm curious about just thinking about some of the farm stands we have now where they really do the majority of what they sell would fall into this. Whether they're, a nursery and they have some pots, I think you could definitely say that goes hand in hand. But then I go to ice cream and I'm like, well, they don't have cows, so they sell ice cream. So just kind of thinking about our existing ones and then how we move forward. I know we have another farm stand that they have a huge amount of orchards. They do operate as a farm stand, not a cidery business. But they during the fall will sell the cider in jugs and allow you to buy a glass grown, but then they also sell beer for people who don't necessarily want a glass of cider as well. So I guess those things we would have to really look into with our compliance department. And so one thing that I was kind of thinking about is does it have to be directly related to the farm products sold at the farm stand, or could it be in order to support all farm products? I don't know, just something to throw out there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you for those suggestions. Hillary, do you want to respond, or you're just listening at this point?
Just listening. I just want to clarify. So beer produced in Oregon would fall into the definition of farm crops and livestock, processed farm crops and livestock. So it wouldn't be subject to the retail incidental item or income limitation if it's an Oregon beer.
Thanks for clarifying that. Sam, Emily, Ryan, Justin, and then I think it's time, then we need to do some public comment so you all can take a break. So
I
yeah.
just want to quickly highlight two things. One, I think Lindsay was kind of going down the track of what I was saying earlier of like, we could clarify this in ways that are actually more protective and provide more flexibility and support for farmers, not only that specific farm stand, but farmers in their community in the surrounding area. And so I will be providing some suggested language that I think meets the objective of not allowing Pokemon cards to be sold, but is also supportive of agriculture more fully. But I just wanted to flag what other Lindsay was saying of we still have the 25% income restriction. So this is a restriction on top of a restriction that the legislature put in place so that we didn't do this exact thing. And so if we are going to go down this road of clarifying rules because we all agree that the 25% income limitation is not enforceable, then I hope that the department will make a recommendation to the legislature to eliminate the 25% income restriction.
Nice. Okay. All right. Good. Thank you for that comment, Samantha, and the ideas that go along with it. Moving all this forward. Emily, Ryan, Justin, Sid, and then we'll pause and shift to public comment.
Thank you. I kind of struggle with this. I just feel like it's obvious that there's a split, that the counties are really in support of this and it's the farmers are not. So we do, I think, taking everybody else out of the picture, it's about the counties and the farmers working together and how can we come to a common consensus of making this more effective to find kind of middle ground. I agree we should not be selling Pokemon cards, like that has been said, but we also have to understand that there's a public expectation here too. What does the public want to see on these farms and how can we support and promote general and all agriculture? Because the goal of a farm stand is one, to sell farm products, but two, it's to invite the public to your land, to educate them about agriculture and to let them walk away knowing that they got to touch a farmer today and that they got to learn something. So I think that we are getting into the nitty-gritty of opinions and what does the public want and what supports agriculture and farmers. And I don't think that this I think this restricts and allows for counties to say yes on this, no on this for every single permit. And I get really, really concerned that this is going to have a very negative impact on farms across the state of Oregon.
Okay, thanks for that feedback. Thank you. All right. Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember in all of this that to a comment earlier that we should be encouraging and mindful of the profitability of our individual farm operations in what is kind of a difficult economic time. So let's not lose sight of that. And then it ties into this 75-25 split. I think if you're going to be restricting the eligibility of products in that 25% category, then you should be open to loosening the eligibility of items that would be qualified under that 75% specific to like prepared foods. So I know that conversation is coming later, but I do think those things are connected, as some other speakers have pointed out. I just wanted to.
All right. Getting us ahead on that one. Thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Justin?
Yes, good morning. Justin Throne with the Klamath County Planning Department, and I apologize for not having a camera. But this question is mostly for Hillary. It's on the overlapping permits, like let's say a farm stand in the structure just happens to be an old barn. But let's say that the owners, operators also manufacture Pokemon cards and a home occupation. And I'm sorry, I actually, this is all theoretical, but it's kind of proving the point. But if they had a home occupation permit to sell from that same structure, having gone under the sub 2 category in the farm impacts test, then they don't have an income limitation on the amount of cards they can sell. Is that correct?
That's correct, Justin. And this points at something that we do see with farm stands is a number of farm stands, particularly larger farm stands, have a number of different types of permits stacked on the property that can create a little bit of confusion. So you might find a farm stand that has a farm stand permit, an agritourism, other commercial event permit, and then may also get a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use permit or a home occupation permit as well. So all of them on the same property. So different authorizations for different activities, subject to different criteria and conditions.
Okay, sure. I appreciate the answer. No, that's actually a real life thing here. So anyway, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. So it may, what a farm stand might have a farm stand label as a sign, and they might have other permits that allow it to do something broader than a sub 1 use farm stand. Is that what I'm hearing you say, Hillary?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay.
So they may also have some of those sub 2 use permits on the same property.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sid, and then we're going to move to public comment.
I want to clarify that in addition to being representing Friends of Yamhill County, I'm also a farmer here in Yamhill County. But I want to address something that I think is incorrect. Sam said that this would be layering on a new restriction that isn't in the statute. In fact, the requirement that the retail incidental items promote the sale of farm crops or livestock sold at the farm stand is in the statute. And this is clarifying what it means to promote.
In a more restrictive way. I just want to be very clear about that.
Just read in a different way, by depending where you're looking at it, it's read more or less restrictively. Okay. All right. Thank you for all of those comments, everyone. And I think what I'd like to do now is make some time here for the public comment. So I know, let me go back to the list that I had here. Hang on, I think, so public comment is limited in time. We're gonna limit you to, if I am counting correctly, I've got some hands coming up there. And so Rory was not on my original list. Let's have you right here. But you can be Rory, so. I think I've got about 6 or 7 people. We had 15 minutes here, so it's like 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes each. And Casaria, are you going to be doing a timer on this? Is somebody doing a timer on this? Other
Yeah,
than me?
it'll take up the whole screen.
Oh, we don't want to do that.
Right.
Yeah, so what I've done in the past is I've done it on my phone and used my thing here. All right, so I'm going to put it at 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Just so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So yeah, that good. So I'm going to do 2:30. And I will cut you off when we get there. Okay. So we're going to start with Anderson. I think I will now, because this is similar to the list that I had, as I'm going to go with the way the hands are lined up here. So Anderson, Rory, Claire, Nina, Tim, Olivier, I think, Devin, and Brandon. Okay. So we'll just provide some time here. And are you ready, Anderson?
I am.
Okay, there you go.
Hi all, I'm Anderson Beals and I'm a land use attorney in Salem, and I'm just here on behalf of my firm, Sherman, Johnny and Hoyt today. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. And I also just want to say thank you to the department for whether it's required or not, treating these RAC meetings as open public meetings. I think it's excellent for transparency and getting all the stakeholders together to make good decisions. I'm just going to be as brief as I can be on one legal issue, not even really diving into policy at all. But the proposed rule for OAR 660-033-03123J, which concerns the 7-year renewing review and renewing permit kind of scheme that's being set up. The language has me concerned because it appears to apply to farm stands that existed before the effective date of this rule. So a previously existing approved vested farm stand. It says for farm stands existing as of the effective date of these rules, the governing body shall conduct the review no more than 7 years after the effective date of these rules, and then every 7 years thereafter. And in connection with that review, the governing body is supposed to issue a new land use decision that either renews farm stand. I think there's actually a typo there. Renews farm stand, a land use permit without additional conditions for farm stands not previously permitted under the provisions of this rule, determines that the farm stand is operating in compliance with this rule, renews the farm stand land use permit with modified conditions, or terminates the farm stand land use permit. So here's my concern. The rule is supposed to concern the approval criteria that counties apply when you apply for a farm stand permit. It shouldn't apply to existing farm stand permits because that would shift the goalposts. Existing farm stand permits should not be subject to the new standards because they're existing lawful vested uses. So to the extent any of these rules are meant to be applied to existing farm stands, I don't think that's lawful under a number of statutes. ORS 215.130 protects lawful existing uses of property.
Hey, Anderson.
Yeah.
I've got you at 2:30 already.
I made the point.
Yeah, okay, good. I was gonna say, and look at the side here. We've got where to send that. We want that in writing as well. So, it goes fast, that 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I beg your pardon for having to cut you off.
That's okay. That's all.
All right. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today. Rory.
Yes, hello, thank you. My name is Rory Isbell. I'm a staff attorney with Central Oregon Land Watch. I first want to just say thank you to DLCD's expert staff and consultants and all of you serving on this RAC for dedicating your time and talents to this rulemaking. Central Oregon Land Watch is a little concerned with the portion of the draft rules in today's packet regarding promotional activities. The rule would allow meal service and similar non-farm commercial activities up to 17 days in a calendar year as farm stands, but clarifies that these activities must be hosted outside of farm stand structures. The farm stand statute is pretty clear that farm stands may not be used for, quote, banquets, public gatherings, or public entertainment. Because the statute disallows these activities, rulemaking cannot go on to allow those types of meal service and related activities as under a farm stand permit. So if the rules continue to allow meal service and similar activities, we are somewhat concerned that the rule will conflict with the statute. I did, in thinking about this, I reviewed the legislative history from both the 1993 adoption of the statute and the 2001 amendments. And testimony from both sets of legislative hearings make pretty clear that the legislature did not intend for meal service and similar public gatherings and non-farm commercial activities to be permitted as farm stands. To allow such activities, we think a sub-2 conditional use permit is required. Agritourism allowances in particular were designed to accommodate those types of activities. And we would respectfully request that the rules clarify that an agritourism or other sub-2 permit is required to host any activity that fits into the category of banquets, public gatherings, or public entertainment. Thank you all so much again, and I appreciate the opportunity for public comment today.
Great. Thanks for being here, Rory. That was 2 minutes. Well done. Okay. Next up is Claire. Claire Zielinski. Thank you, Rory.
Hello.
My name is Claire Zielinski. I am the president of the Oregon Agritourism Partnership, also known as the Oregon Farm Loop. Our members strongly oppose several of the proposed rules, particularly new limits on temporary structures, redefinition of incidental items, the unchanged 75-25 income split, and the addition of farm stand development standards. The proposed ban on incidental sales and other farm product sales under temporary structures is unnecessary and damaging. Tents and other mobile setups are critical for beginning agritourism businesses with limited capital. They're also essential for employee safety and protecting sensitive sales equipment like scales and payment systems. If tents are allowed for employees selling products from the farm, then why are employees not afforded the same luxury of being shaded if they are selling educational tours or other items? Worse, forcing permanent structures on farmlands reduces the usability of agricultural space, undermining the very work of this farmlands group. Farm stand development standards. The addition of these standards reviewed every 7 years is deeply problematic. It opens the door to new costs and compliance burdens every cycle, destabilizing small farm businesses. These rules invite local governments to impose fees, modify these permits, and revoke them altogether, subjecting farmers to a regulatory system more intrusive than any other land use sector in the state. The DLCD's redefinition of incidental items is overly narrow and would ban many products long accepted at farm stands. Under current law, farms earn up to 25% of their income from non-farm goods sales. The new language allows only items directly related to the farm's own crops, making it more difficult and is not supporting other Oregon agriculture and Oregon businesses. Many of our members had hoped that these meetings would reconsider the outdated 75-25 income split, but no alternatives have been afforded in this proposed language, despite the clear need for growth and diversification in agritourism across the state. Oregon loves to promote agritourism. It loves to do this in theory, but restricts it in practice. In a recent Oregon Live article, it was highlighted that there's
You've got 5 seconds, Claire.
Okay. Vineyards and other non-agricultural industries are allowed to diversify and grow our economy. Our members are running legitimate farm stands and are blocked at every turn. No other industry in Oregon is scrutinized and unwelcomed to the length that agritourism is. And I would also like to add that I really think that it would be great to add another meeting because the link for this Zoom meeting was not properly posted on the website. I know many people who wanted to give comment, but were unable because of the improper posting of this meeting.
Great. Thank you so much for that feedback, Claire. And
then I
consider.
also have John here as well.
Okay. I did not know John was with you. So and I told Nina she'd be next. So I will loop back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. So Nina?
Good morning, Donna. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Wonderful. This is Nina Sackett-Kronberg with Be Easy Farm. I'm up in Multnomah County in the scenic Columbia Gorge Scenic River area. I run a farm and a farm stand. And I'm here today to advocate for other small farms that also run small farm stands. As we know, there's a crisis in small farming in the state. We are going out of business at an alarming rate. Our margins really suck. And the best way that we have to make money is these farm stands. I am here. I've been on this meeting for 3 hours to get my 2 minutes to state clearly my deep concern over more restrictive regulations on farm stands, which represent generally our most profitable venue for moving product from the farm. Time and money spent preparing myself to meet regulations is time and money that is just gone. It doesn't actually make me money. And as regulations change, I have to spend more time and money perhaps talking to the nice lawyers who were on earlier to help make sure that I'm prepared to meet that regulatory burden. And I'm also concerned that some of the proposed rules today will require the Department of Land Use to regulate in new ways and start looking at new types of documents that they are not trained to do. For instance, inventory lists. I don't know that DLCD has ever regulated inventory lists before. They usually do financial statements.
Actually, DLCD, we've learned it's the counties that do the regulation, do the enforcement, not DLCD. So just want to be clear.
The counties. Well, so I'm in the scenic area, which just saw a huge funding cut. My Multnomah County scenic area planners are cut by 20%, which means that they have 20% less time to adapt to new regulations, which, should I get pinged for justifying what I have in my farm stand, and they're looking at new documentation while they're understaffed, that has the very real potential to put me out of business for my farm stand, where I'm trying to move 25% of my product.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us today. And I want to make sure that you've seen in the chat to submit your comments in writing for it to be part of the record today. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I'm going to do Tim, Olivier. I'm going to do the ones that I called out. So Tim, Olivier, Devin, Brandon, John, and then Thrive. If you can wait with your comment to put it in writing, please do. But please, you are welcome to be here. So Tim, your 2.5 minutes start now. Thank you.
You can hear me okay then?
Yeah, very well.
Okay. Yeah, I'll kind of limit my comment to the income test issue, the 25% issue. I know that I see that the rhetoric is leaning towards addressing that as a potential change, and I would agree that particular item, the 25% issue of incidental allowed sales, is somewhat inappropriate, and it may actually violate the rights of the property owner and the farmer if that was used as an item of enforcement. And therefore, it probably should be changed in order to get away from that controversy. And if there is to be a test to ensure that farming is the primary activity, it should simply be that at least 51% of the land operated by the farm be used for the production of crops, of which at least some portion of those are the qualifying crops that allowed the farm stand. Now, that being said, I would also say that vending, food vending and that sort of thing during farm agritourism activities should be an allowed activity also, in order to assure public services are available for a day-long visits, and that also assures that there's a food safety issue taken into account so the counties can help provide a safe environment and use the food safety permits and policies of the county to assure food safety issues are addressed. That being said, I'll have other comments that I'll submit in writing at some point, or maybe if there's another opportunity for vocal comment, maybe. But I appreciate you guys' work, and I think you're making progress in the right direction. It sounds like we've got some people there that are doing a pretty good job. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for that feedback, Tim. And we will move now to Olivier. Thanks for joining us, Olivier. And your 2.5 starts now.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Olivier Jamin. I'm an attorney at Davis Wright Tremaine in Portland. While we're not a RAC member, we've been attending the RAC meetings and participated in previous farm and forest modernization rulemaking. So I'm here on behalf of our firm as land use practitioners, working with a lot of farmers, benefiting from farm stands and other activities. The comments we want to offer today are focused on the fact that farm stands are a use of right on EFU land under the statute and under Oregon Supreme Court precedent. We think this fundamental principle is lost in this rulemaking effort. Farm stands and privileges that go along with those offer many benefits for farmers and the agricultural economy in Oregon. They offer farmers an opportunity to diversify farm revenue, create networks for bolstering larger agricultural economy, and feature and promote products from the local agricultural area. It gives opportunities for educating children and adults about where their food comes from. The purpose of this rulemaking was intended to support farmers by resolving enforcement inconsistencies and providing clearer guidance, especially in light of HB 3133, which aimed to protect and expand farm stand opportunities. Those are extremely popular with the public. The goal was not to restrict those. Unfortunately, direction of the RAC right now instead would jeopardize livelihoods and farms with a host of new restrictions and a new enforcement system. This rulemaking was supposed to make things simpler and clearer and more objective, in our opinion, and at this point, it's not doing that and might do just the opposite. As a result, we encourage DLCD moving forward to refocus this rulemaking effort on allowing the use of temporary structures for shelter and eating, the new definition of processed farm products, clarifying that things like admissions for pumpkin patch and other farm-related activities does not go towards the 25% incidental cap, and clearly allowing the sale of individual and bulk prepared food items produced from farm crops. This will also submit written comments into the record. So thanks for the opportunity to talk today, and we'll continue attending those meetings and keeping a close eye on this rulemaking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us. Devin, Brandon, Thrive, then John Zielinski.
Hello, as the Hood River County Farm Bureau president, I represent over 230 farmers and agricultural businesses related to agriculture in Hood River County. I want to make the voice of Hood River farmers known to the Farm Stand and Rules Advisory Committee. I'm also a fifth generation full-time farmer and operator of a farm stand. First, I want to state that Mike McCarthy, a member of your RAC and local farmer in the Parkdale area of our county, does not represent the voice of Hood River farmers or agriculture in our county. His comments in meeting number 3 were misleading and inaccurate, stating that many of our farmers complain every day that we're going to lose the fruit industry in Hood River County because of agritourism. End quote. Many farmers complain about agritourism. And he says it's also affecting our bottom line every day. These comments are baseless and inconsistent with what I hear from the farmers that I represent as a Farm Bureau president in Hood River County. The Hood River County Fruit Loop is a favorite feature in Hood River County for non-farming local residents and other local farmers and out of the area visitors alike. Additionally, Mike made some very misrepresented statements and showed pictures of a private fruit stand business last meeting. And that owner actually invited Mike to come talk to him about those comments, which Mike apologized for and saying those were misleading statements and admitted to using exaggerated comments to make a point to the RAC. To address the farm stands and the points the RAC is tasked to address, I'd offer the following input. That the Hood River Farm Bureau supports the rights of an agricultural producer to vertically integrate their farm operation. We support commercial activities and promotional activities as accessories to farm use. We do not support limits on the amount of income a farmer can earn for promoting their business. We believe on-farm experiences encourage the public to learn and support farming, and we support farmers engaging the public on their farm stand or on their farm to promote agriculture. We oppose any regulation that makes it more difficult for farmers to educate the public about agriculture. We support the right for farmers to produce and process, market, promote, and sell their commodities in a manner most economically advantageous to their operation. And finally, we believe that the local county is best suited to evaluate compliance with existing law and to determine the conditions for agritourism within their county while working with local farmers on appropriate regulation for that specific area. Thank you for your time, and I'll also submit more of these comments via email.
In writing. Great. Thank you, Devin. Thanks for being here. Brandon, and then I'm guessing it's Chris for Thrive Hood River, and then John Zielinski.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment this morning. My name is Brandon Persinger, and I cover natural resource and land use related issues for the Association of Oregon Counties. First, I want to thank everyone that has spent time on this RAC and the work that has been happening. As a member of the legislative work group, we spent time trying to ensure the impacts to farmers that desired to have a farm stand, ease the process on the planners that issue the permits, and address impacts on neighboring farmers. The proposed rules as they currently stand, I believe, fall short of what that work group was attempting to address. Some of the questions that have come up in reviewing these draft rules include the 7-year review The 7-year review will cause additional work for the planning departments as well as on the farmers applying for the farm stands. 7 years is so long that staff will have turned over at the counties and potentially at the farm stands, also making the reporting more difficult. And then if they do not meet said reporting requirements, are the counties then tasked with shutting down the farm stands? Counties don't have the staff to do that, nor would they be in a position to support DLCD becoming the farm stand enforcement mechanism. It should also be said that I don't think counties would be able to support a shorter interval, as the burden on counties would be even higher at that shorter time frame. Who is going to fund the issuance of Measure 56 notices if these new rules would require said notices to be delivered? Applying subjective language like low intensity and infrequent activities to the uses permitted outright is not workable and will cause issues based on who is working the counter when the application comes in. The subjective language, direct relationship intended to promote, will have to be applied during the land use review. So I have heard from some county planners that view this as anytime someone wants to sell a new item, they would need to have a new land use approval. This is also problematic. And then finally, the draft rules say that the following development standards shall be applied to farm stands permitted under this rule, and then lists many items. County road departments are currently reviewing the impacts of the first 6 bullets and what that will have on their workload, but it is anticipated to be high depending on the county and the number of farm stands. County road departments did not have a seat on this rack and are experts on the county road system. It also then goes on to say that things should be followed, but fall under the overarching umbrella of shall be applied. This will also cause confusion at the counter for both farmers applying and the planners issuing the permits. Again, I appreciate this rack and the work that has been done, and I respectfully request additional time to be given to further vet and work through these rules. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Yeah, there's Chris. Okay, Chris.
Sorry, now I'm here. Now I'm here.
Okay, your 2.5 minutes starts now.
So Chris Roebuck, co-president of Thrive Hood River. We're the oldest regional land use organization in the state. We have concerns, huge concerns about 2 of the proposed rules. The upcoming one on promotional activities would force counties to allow restaurants on farmland. The one after that on temporary structures would change the statutory limitation on the design and use of structures at farm stands. In a nutshell, I think all of this discussion could be condensed into it belongs in legislative hearings. The legislature was crystal clear in 2001 when they passed the promotions clause that they did not intend for restaurants to be on farm stands. The Greenfield court said that farm stand structures absolutely cannot be designed and used solely for promotional purposes. The 25% is in statute. Any attempt to allow these things and actually force them as a sub 1 use in farm stands is an end run around the legislature. All of this should take place there, not through the back door, through LCDC. And frankly, LCDC has told us at the start of this process that they don't have the power to do that anyway. They don't have the power, they said, to change statute, to change case law, or yeah, there we go. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Claire. Appreciate that. And now let's go to John, but hang on, John, I need to stop the timer. Are you ready for your 2.5, John? Let's go. Good to see you again.
Hi, nice to see you. Introduction, I'm John Zelensky from Easy Orchards just outside Salem. I am very concerned that the wrong link was sent for today's meeting. I contacted numerous people to participate, sending them the supposed accidental incorrect link. I think there should be another meeting to allow more public testimony. I have concerns about the retail incidental items. The definition is left to interpretation as to what is related to the farm. What one person or county planner may see as related, another may not. To address Mike McCarthy's concern about size concerning farm stand versus outright use, Mike mentioned that a U-Pick operation that has 200 customers cars should be regulated. With that in mind, should growers who grow commodity apples or pears or whatever the crop might be required to get a mass gathering or other permit if they have 200 pickers with cars on their farm? I have grave concern about the impact of Jim Johnson on these meetings. He retired from the ODA as a supposed neutral land use specialist. However, Jim has had close ties to 1,000 Friends and their affiliates for a number of years. In less than a month from retiring, he became the lobbyist for 1,000 Friends. I have observed in these meetings that people have asked Jim to reference his work at the ODA. This gives the appearance of Jim as a representative of the ODA, which is not accurate. I think the prepared food section is confusing. The DLCD proposed rules do not provide clarity as to whether prepared foods can be sold. Regarding promotional events, it is unclear if many activities that currently occur will be allowed to continue. I provide hay rides in October. Technically, a person doesn't need a hay ride to pick an apple or a pumpkin. Will activities like this be restricted? The limitation for farm-to-table dinners is arbitrary, overkill, and unwarranted. Regarding siting standards and enforcement regime, the intention of this rulemaking was to protect and support permit holders, not create rules that threaten their livelihoods. There are a number of new standards suggested for parking, access, and other things. As I mentioned earlier, should wholesale commodity growers who have 100 plus pickers be required to follow new standards?
John, your time is up. So if you can wrap up what you're saying there, that'd be great.
Sure.
It's not my favorite part of my job.
All right. There have been numerous references to original intent. There are proponents of the original intent suggesting that Oregon should lock all laws in time. This rack is happening for the second time as a consolation to the death of House Bill 3033. The original intent of any law is to deal with the current issues and to project forward. However, as a legislative democracy, the rules are not meant to be stuck in time. When Senate Bill 100 was introduced 52 years ago, the legislators could not have known what the public would want from farmers in the future. As I mentioned in testimony at the last meeting, Oregon farms and those farmers who sell their products and associated products to the public should not be put in a piece of Tupperware where no air can get in.
Okay. Thank you very much, John. And I know there are some other folks that have been asking to provide product comments, but we are all already 10 minutes over the time that we had allotted for, actually, I think 15 now for public comment. And we have a lot left for the RAC to discuss. I know that Samantha has let us know in advance that she has to leave for another meeting and would like to just say one more thing before she goes. And then I do want to give you all at least a 5-minute bio break. The 3-hour meetings are a long time to, as they say, hold it. So with that, Sam, if you can quickly say something.
Yes. I want to apologize to the group. I had a pre-existing board meeting that I have to attend, so I have to leave early, but I wanted to give some quick comments in response to public comment and then on the citing standards and enforcement provisions of the rule. One, I just want to say and take note of the fact that on this call, we have heard pretty clearly that those who are farmers and represent farmers and who were a part of the legislative work group trying to provide clarity for farmers to protect them and give them more opportunity are not supportive of these rules and have a lot of concerns with these rules. And so with that, I want to offer my organization will be working to provide draft rules and guidance that I believe will meet the charge of helping counties and farmers have clarity and legal certainty without causing undue impacts and threatening farmers' livelihoods, which they do not deserve at this point and was really not the direction that this rulemaking was supposed to go. and where the law needs to go, which is why my organization brought a bill this session to attempt to provide that clarity. And with that, I just want to also say that I am really concerned about the citing standards and the enforcement regime for all of the reasons that Mr. Beal and Mr. Jamin, my colleagues, referenced. There are some serious legal issues here with how the department is approaching this, and we would urge them not to move forward with that at this time. Again, I will follow up in writing, and we'll be working with the farmers on this call, and I apologize to the farmers on the call that I have to leave, but thank you for the time.
Okay, great. Thank you, Samantha. Thanks for being here. I do want to suggest that I know I've been getting some notes from people saying that they have 12 o'clock hard stops as well. And we are planning to end at 12. I do want to give you all just a quick time for a break and we'll come back. Let me touch base with staff. I've heard a couple of people suggesting there needs to be one more meeting because of the trouble for people getting in at the start. So let me chat with them during the break. Let's plan to be back, let's say 7 minutes. All right. So that at 11:20. We'll see you back here at 11:20. Thank you all.
I'm sorry, were we going to move into content or just schedule and talk about next steps?
Okay, is Hillary back as well? There she is.
Yes.
All right. So okay, thank you very much, everybody. We were trying to have a quick huddle about the requests to have another meeting for more public comments. Hillary, do you want to say anything about that right now?
I also don't mind, Donna.
Okay, Kirsten, go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So just quickly, I think, we're on page 3 of 8. Donna, let me know. Sorry, I've been now I have a RAC meeting myself this afternoon, so we're preparing for that. If RAC members need more time to deliberate on the packet and the questions, that's why we'd be scheduling another meeting. There's lots of time for public comment until November 7th. So we'll try and build in time for public comment again at the RAC meeting if we have an additional, but Kasari is ready to launch a poll for RAC members in Zoom. I want to just say thank you to RAC members in advance for meeting again and continuing this discussion. I know it's a lot out of your work days. So, but to take up the content and get RAC members guidance, super important. And also, of course, to allow for public comment to inform RAC members deliberation. So we will launch that soon, but thank you. I bet I have to take another call. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let's do the substance first, and then we'll do that poll a little bit later. So Hillary, I'm going to let you press on to your next, whatever your next slide is there, or the document itself. I know I see here that there was at least one person who said that they thought it would be valuable to speak on the public comment. And actually, I'm going to not let you do that this time. I want to stay focused on the comments here on the rule itself. So if you'd like to post, if you want to post something here for me to post for everybody to see about public comments, that's fine. I just, your job really is to help DLCD with this rule language, and I want you to stay on that right now. So, I beg your pardon for not having more time on that, but we are really running tightly here. We might be able to have more comment on it at the next meeting. So. And there will be a formal public hearing in front of the Land Conservation and Development Commission in September. So everyone from the members of the public, those are the ones you want to convince. This is the group that's trying to provide, based on their experiences, information to LCDC, right? To DLCD before that LCD meeting. Okay. So let's go ahead to back to Hillary and moving us to our next substantive one.
All right, great, thanks. And we will wrap up again with next steps to make sure that's clear for everyone as well. So I think in the time that we have remaining for this meeting, we can take some comments on the 4th topic, and the other 4 topics. I think we will hopefully defer to another meeting. We'll do a poll for that on a bit. So the 4th topic was the relationship between promotional activities and farm stand products. So statute allows fee-based activity to promote the sale of farm crops or livestock sold at the farm stand. And that is subject to an income limitation. So fee-based activities, revenue from fee-based activities and revenue from the sale of incidental retail items is limited to 25% of the sales of the farm stand. And I do want to note that that is a statutory provision, right? That's in statute, and to change that requires an act of the legislature. So given that limitation, we did have a lot of good discussion on what promotional activities are. You know, what is permissible? What does it mean to promote the farm stand products? You know, what types of things are these? And there was a variety of opinion on what that relationship should look like and how direct the relationship between promotional activities and farm stand products should be. So we received some comments that this should be left to county discretion. The agency received several proposals for language that would clarify the necessary relationship. We also heard that examples of allowable activities would be useful. And based on that feedback from our RAC and from public comments that were submitted to us, we were proposing to clarify that a promotional activity intended to promote farm products is one that features farm stand products as the primary focus of the activity, or educates visitors on the agricultural practices being conducted on the farm. So the event actually needs to promote the sale of farm stand products in this sort of direct way. And we provided some examples of the sort of events that might reasonably be expected to do that, like flower arranging classes, fee-based educational tours, cooking demonstrations using products sold at the farm stand, rides to or through crop fields. So somebody had mentioned a hay ride earlier. So we're providing that example in language. If you're taking a ride out through the crop fields, that might be considered a promotional event. And on the educational activities earlier, educational activities like tours for which no fee charged are farm use, this is where those fee-based educational activities would come into play. I do want to note that when we included farm-to-table meals in the list of sort of potential activities here, we got a lot of written comments on the inclusion of farm-to-table meals in that list. And that was related to questions that the agency posed to the RAC at the end of the second meeting. So again, thank you to folks who took the time to send us to your thoughts on that. We got a lot of feedback, particularly about when these types of events are allowable as part of a farm stand, as opposed to when those events require other permits, like an agritourism and commercial event permit, or a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use permit. So again, as a sub 1 use, farm stands are assumed to be compatible with agricultural operations, and they do not require a farm impacts review. And it's important to note that permits for additional events, like your agritourism and other commercial events, you know, for the 6th event permit, so that's 18 days, or the higher level, which is essentially 54 days, do require a farm impacts review and an opportunity for public comment. So after a good deal of consideration, the agency proposed to clarify that they are permissible as a promotional event, as long as it's sort of at a smaller scale than would be required if you are or to obtain that agritourism and other commercial event permit. So here the limitation of 17 days in a calendar year for farm-to-table meals at a farm stand is less than the 3rd tier of agritourism and other commercial event permit. That is the thinking behind that. So if you wish to have more than 17 events in a calendar year, you would get that agritourism and other commercial event permit, or a commercial activity in conjunction with farm use permit, which require that public comment and farm impacts review. I do want to note that that limitation does not apply to other types of promotional activities here. So opening it now to comments. I expect a lot of them.
Right? There's Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, we're very concerned. Our group, Ag for Oregon, which by the way is actually farmers who farm and make a living farming, all of us. So the characterization that farmers feel one way that was stated earlier is not really true. We're very concerned about these types of wording will allow restaurants in the farm zone. And our group is very concerned about the negative impacts long-term of restaurants and more agritourism in the farm zone. Most farmers do not benefit in any way from agritourism. The majority of farmers do not use agritourism and support themselves through normal farming practices and sales and agriculture. And just as an example, in Hood River County, there's 400 million pounds of pears raised. 0.3% of those might be sold at farm stands. 400 million pounds sold, 0.3% may be sold at farm stands. So that really has no impact on the fruit industry in Hood River County. So that's really our concern, that we're moving farther and farther away from actual farming in the farm zone and moving to restaurants. And the particular wording that concerns me here is product sampling, cooking demonstrations, and of course, farm to table meals. All of those will resort in restaurants. You can have a cooking demonstration all day long, every day, cooking hamburgers and making salads, and it will be a restaurant. Product sampling, we're product sampling hamburgers and etc. all day long, every day. So these are restaurants in the farm zone, slightly improved by the 17-day limit. It means that there will be 17 weekends a year where there will be restaurants in the farm zone. If you are not required to get a permit for those events, nobody will be counting those events. So more than likely there will be 40 or 50. And we saw this in the wedding situation in Hood River County, where people were allowed a certain number of weddings and they had 3 times as many as they were allowed, hoping that nobody was counting. So the wording here is way too far open. The word predominantly is not defined. And again, likely there will not be predominantly feature farm crops and livestock sold at the farm stand. It will be other stuff. It will be impossible to enforce. So we think this is way too far open. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Let's then move to Austin, then Emily. And I'm just noting that at the top of mine, this is for DLCD staff, that it's like going between recording. It's like flashing back and forth between recording and custom live streaming service. So I don't know if you need to check that, Caesarea, or somebody else there. So Austin, and then Emily, then Alice, then Jim.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. I think our thoughts on this one from Marion County are that this creates more confusion, I think, in the rules. We've already got the agritourism code, which this kind of really blends closely to that. So our thoughts would be, instead of having this language in here, just say that generally these sorts of activities should be qualified under an agritourism permit, especially sort of like cooking demonstrations and farm to table dinners and these more intensive uses. If you're doing a farm tour or a hayride, I think that can be done without agritourism. But our thoughts are that if we're going to open up the section this big, we should just write a section that says these activities should be qualified under the agritourism. So we don't have people sort of wondering which one do they fall under and how much can you do under a farm stand before it becomes agritourism. Because if we don't have that trigger in here, I think it could be problematic for people trying to figure out what they want to do.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that perspective, Austin. Emily, Alice, Jim, Peter.
Yeah, so well, first, I think that there's some counties that don't have the ability to do an agritourism permit, so I don't know how you would be able to blend that in. I understand some do, and I respect that. My only thing on this is it's conducted on the farm. I think it should just be able to be surrounded with the agriculture. Like it should just be, if not that that is exactly grown on the farm, but as long as it supports and is related to general ag, that's my biggest edit on this.
As opposed to products grown on the farm.
Directly on the farm, yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you for that input. Appreciate that. Alice, Jim, Peter.
Hi, thank you. I appreciate that this, clarifies some parts of the fee-based activity. I agree that this opens things up in a way that blurs lines between agritourism and farm stands. I think that what I've been hearing from my farmers over and over again is that folks really, really, really want to know what they're supposed to be doing, what they're supposed to apply for. And I think that if there are things that are being covered in agritourism permits, we should be very careful about including them in farm stand permits as well, because there is this level of confusion and the ability for, not the ability, but the opportunity for farmers in different counties to get different answers when there is this crossover and this Venn diagram happening. And that's something that is incredibly frustrating to the folks that I work with. And so I think that the farm to table dinner, I agree with some folks who have stated that there are some challenges with some of the subjective standards listed here. And I would like to see much more clear standards applied to that, if that's something that I know that there is a desire in my community to have a way to perform farm to table dinners that is in accordance with the law. If that is going to be agritourism permit only, we'd like that to be established. If that's going to be farm stand permit under very specific conditions, we'd like to have input on those specific conditions, but I don't think predominantly featuring farm product is specific enough for this to be applied equally across counties.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you, Alice. Really appreciate that. Jim, and then Peter.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off by making this relatively simple and then detail it. I would agree with what Austin Barnes said about these types of activities, such as farm to table dinners and the like, are better addressed through the agritourism statute and not the farm stand statute. I understand the concern that the agritourism statute is optional. Counties are not required to do that, but that's a local decision. If your local government doesn't want to allow those, you need to be talking to your county commissioners about that. That was a decision of the legislature to make it optional, not to make it mandatory. My concern about the language here is that farm to table dinners are not defined, and I've seen some farm to table situations turn into almost permanent food service operations, as opposed to something coming out onto the farm occasionally and the like during the season and promoting it, as opposed to being a predominant use of the subject operation. So I think a definition of farm to table dinners is something to consider. I support farm to table dinners, though, being authorized through the agritourism statute, not as part of a farm stand. And I think I'll leave it at that. I think it was well stated, though, from the Marion County planner in terms of how this should be addressed. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jim. Peter.
And I'm going to agree with Jim on agreeing with Austin. I think what Austin said made a lot of sense. That there needs to be, and it's always confusing talking about this, the lines between agritourism and farm stands get blurred. And having that occasional farm to table meals in there all the way up to 18, I think, is really blurring the lines between what should be allowed outright in a farm stand and what needs to go through a little more permitting and vetting.
Okay. All right. So really making that distinction between what is an actual, what is an allowed use just as it is as a farm use versus what goes to that next level, which is the agritourism. Making that clear is what I'm hearing people tagging onto with Austin. So Sid and then Ryan.
I generally agree with the previous speakers, Austin, Jim, Peter, et cetera. I share Jim's concern about the lack of definition as to what is a farm to table dinner or or a farm to table meal. I also want to note that the agritourism statute applies a higher standard to more than 6 discrete events, regardless of whether they are meals or other promotional events.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because once you start having more frequent events, the impacts become greater, the potential impacts become greater, and the level of analysis that should be conducted, the legislature decided should be examined. And those impacts occur whether the event is a farm to table dinner or some other promotional event. And so if there is a limitation, I mean, I'm convinced by Austin that if something something falls under the agritourism statute, that's the route that an applicant should take. However, if the rule does include a calendar limitation on how many events, it should apply to all promotional events. It should not apply just to vaguely defined farm to table meals.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that feedback, Sid. Ryan, Farm Bureau.
Yeah. Hi. So I think I would be concerned for those counties, folks in those counties that maybe don't have the access to the agritourism exceptions that have been discussed. And so I think we need to be mindful of that. Also, in the world, it's important to remember in the market that we're living in right now, ag producers they benefit from being able to differentiate themselves from their competitors. And so this being able to market and promote your product in a new and fresh way, I think that fits the unique needs of that particular growing operation. I think that needs to be acknowledged and respected. I also think there was a comment earlier about kind of the overall volume and the share of the production, a small percentage of it being representative of the larger scale, and how there is how that may not be a big piece of the overall production. While that may be true, the important thing in there is that through these direct consumer experiences, you're getting a premium for that product that you wouldn't be otherwise receiving at scale by having it sent off to a packing shed. So that I think is very, very important, and because the margins on versus of something like this defined direct to consumer is going to be so much greater than something that is produced at scale.
Great. Okay. Thanks for that feedback. And Austin, I see your hand up. Did people misunderstand what you were saying, or do you want to refine what you were saying? What do you want to add here, Austin?
No, not at all. I just wanted to add that I support definition for farm to table dinners if that's going to be included in the rule. Because what is that? How much connection to the food does there have to be? We currently have a lavender farm with a farm stand that wants to do farm to table dinners, and so, well, you don't really eat lavender. How much lavender has to be present? Is it cooked within the food? Is it a garnish? Is it just set on the table? Those are questions we were all asking ourselves. We ended up permitting them under an agritourism permit for farm to table dinners because that's how we thought it fit best with the code. But that's just something I just wanted to say my support for, was define that term. And then additionally, if this was left in, I would probably reduce that number from 17, probably lower to maybe 10. 17 is basically a large agritourism operation, which I feel isn't the intent of a farm stand. But that is my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I see Jim's hand has popped up with that one. as well?
Yeah, it just reminded me of something, and it relates to something that Sid talked about, and that is when you look at the agritourism statute, it talks of, from six events up, the standards change, and that supports what
Mhm.
that supports not having such a large number if we're going to go that way, and I'm not sure I support that. The 17 days that exceeds that six threshold that the agritourism has, that kicks things into a higher standard, so to speak. So I would support limiting that number if we even use a number.
Can I jump in there real quick, Donna? I
Please
just want to
do, yeah.
clarify that agritourism statute authorizes 6 72-hour events, which is essentially 18 days of events, right? And that's the third level of agritourism statute, which is where we came up with that 17-day number instead of limiting those 17 days to being like 6 weekend-long events, like the agritourism statute does. We were using sort of that same number, which is one less sort of event, which is 17. Just to be clear about that, since there's a difference in wording between the agritourism, which authorizes 6 72-hour events, as opposed to what we're proposing here, which is 17 days, but it's essentially like 1 day less than would be authorized under that level of permit for the agritourism.
Great. That's helpful to have that clarified. Where you
Yeah.
all came up with the number was not random, that you did have a rationale for where you came up with it. And to let everybody see what that is, that could even be something that you would clarify either in rule or guidance. I want to just, I see your hand there, Mike, and I want to just pause for half a second and talk to Hillary. So Hillary, I sent you a chat. Do you want to move? Do you want to continue here, or it looks like if we have a hard stop at 12, we probably should move to process and talk about.
Yeah, let's.
So let's take Mike's comment, and then should we do the process? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, let's move to the poll so we have clarity on next steps.
Okay. All right. So Mike, you first, and then we'll do the process clarification for next steps. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. One thing we really haven't looked at carefully with all this wording, though, is impacts to neighboring farms. We've talked around it a little bit, but we really haven't talked about that. And, as we talk about this whole thing of agritourism, we have to be aware that most people, most farms don't participate in agritourism, and most of them in agritourism areas are negatively impacted. And I don't see any wording in here that really helps that situation. So I would add wording in here that that there needs to be a clear understanding that there's to be no negative impacts on surrounding farms.
Great. Okay. Good. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for saying that. All right, we got it. Got it there. Okay. Good. And just so you all know that, the summaries of these meetings are done by using the recording of this meeting. So, if you see us taking some notes or not taking some notes and trying to pay attention to you, yeah, the poll's not there yet, Charles, don't worry. Hillary goes back and looks at the recording. We go back and look at the recording, and we make sure that we're trying to make sure that the summary includes everybody's comments, and does justice to combining comments where we're seeing them. So, if I know we've been getting some feedback from you on that, but if you have more, please let us know. And so just trying to keep this as transparent for everybody's sake as possible. Hillary, let's go back to you. And here we have the farm stand overflow availability. I want to please ask before you start doing this is, I want you to please be a member of the RAC to weigh in on this one. Okay. So we have to get a QR code. Is that right? No, I don't need to get into QR code. Yeah.
No, it should just be there. It popped up on my screen. So RAC members should have it popped up on their screen.
Yeah, something just happened for me. It popped up on my screen. There we go.
Hey,
Okay.
Can I ask a clarifying question?
You may, Ryan.
What would the agenda be for this overflow meeting? Is it for public comment?
No.
the overflow is for the second half of this meeting, right? So far we've gotten through the first 4 topics. We had planned for today: temporary structures, processed and prepared foods. We've had some conversations about those things, but there's more on the agenda that we wanted to allow the RAC to have conversation about. So that would be what we would be talking about, are those items that they've popped up on the screen there. Does that help?
Yeah, I just have availability issues next week, so.
Okay.
I do as well. I can't make a meeting next week.
Okay.
Okay.
And next week looks pretty bad for me too.
And do I remember from the beginning timeline, in my mind, Hillary, there was some reason why this group needed to be done by a certain date for you staff to get something to the commission by a certain date. Can you remind everyone about that?
Sure. So let me touch a little bit more again on next steps. And we also really need to review our fiscal impact statement. That's a legal requirement that we have at our next meeting. So we've been asked to conclude this meeting, this rulemaking, by the end of the year. And so we are looking to have rules that are effective in 2026. We are also trying to be sensitive that a number of the stakeholders for this rulemaking are very busy during the month of October. And that's the prime farm stand season. And so we are hoping to hold our public hearing in September. That's when we expect to have lots of oral testimony. We'll have written comments coming in, and then adopt rules in December. So in order for us to go through the internal review process, to work with the Department of Justice, and to have the needed package to the Secretary of State, we absolutely need to have sort of a recommendation the first week of August. And so that is why we are really hoping to wrap our conversations with the Rulemaking Advisory Committee up the end of this month. So that's a little bit of the feedback behind the schedule.
Okay.
So so this is here.
Let's do a different polling system here for this question of how many RAC members cannot make it next week.
I can make a meeting later in the week, but not on the 22nd or 23rd.
That's exactly my situation. I can go later in the week, Thursday or Friday. The first 3 days are booked.
Okay. And there was someone else who said they couldn't make it next week.
Yeah, I was looking for the mute button. That actually aligns kind of with my issue too. Like Tuesday and Wednesday are not great. But I could do something Thursday or Friday probably, depending on the time on Friday.
That's the same for me over here. Friday's open. I think the 23rd. I can only make one of them, the 23rd in the afternoon, but Friday's all open for me.
I am available at both times on the 23rd. I am not available after 3 p.m. on the 24th or at all on Friday the 25th.
Okay.
And Donna, for next week, these times are based on staff availability.
As well. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's going to be my suggestion to you, having not chatted with anyone about this in advance, but it strikes me that what we really should do is like a doodle poll offline here and give some options next week. And if there's any way to push it for staff into early the following week, the 20th and 29th, does that help anybody who can't make it to those meetings to next week? If we push to the 20th, 29th? And I don't know if that's possible. I can see Hillary's like gritting her teeth saying you should have asked me. Does it work for staff, Hillary?
I don't know. I need to.
We'll have to take some time, Donna, and also for you. We also don't want to do it without Donna.
Yeah, no, that following week works. I can make that work. So
I'm out that whole week, but that's fine. I can submit written comments. This RAC isn't just about me, so that's all good.
We know one thing is it won't be perfect for everybody, but thank you, Donna. Thanks. I'll
Thank
go back
you.
on the note.
Yeah, it just strikes me that doing this, not taking more time here. We have 4 minutes for you to talk about whatever else you want to talk about regarding next steps, Hillary.
So we will get together internally and come up with a date for a extended RAC meeting. We do need to discuss our fiscal impact statement with the RAC, and we do have those 4 additional topics to cover. Our intention was to keep collecting comments until the 25th. So close of business on the 25th is when we would like to have all comments in if you would like them to be considered by staff as we're developing that agency recommendation for rulemaking. And again, we do have some key deadlines in the process coming up to have something adopted by the end of the year. But we will let you know about that. Please do send written comments if you have additional ones, but prior to the end of the day on the 25th. We will get a meeting summary out for this meeting for comment and do and ask for corrections to the meeting summary by the 25th. And we'll also do another one for our follow-up meeting here. Okay.
Okay.
So I think that is it for me. I appreciate everybody's flexibility with the process right now. We really appreciate all the time that you have devoted to this effort. Again, those 32 comment letters, that is really super helpful to staff to have those written comments to review. Thank you, everyone. I know folks are very busy, and we appreciate your time that you've devoted to this and helping us draft rules for this.
So I just want to say thank you to everybody as well. And we apologize for the technical issues that we were having today. It looks to me on my end as a Zoom did an update, and that may have been part of what made a mistake on everything here. I know I was not updated on my end, so and didn't make time to update before the meeting. I'm not in charge of what's happening there, but I just am, there may be some external forces, and I want to acknowledge that makes it really frustrating for everybody. Appreciate your patience on all of this. We will try and we will get you that spillover meeting information ASAP. I also got a chat from someone, I'm not going to say their name here, saying that they didn't appreciate the allowance of personal tax, and I'm sorry that I missed that. There was a lot of multitasking going on from a technical perspective, so I missed that happened. I think everybody doesn't want to have personal tax, and so let's go back and look at those principles of our engagement here for the future. And let's make sure that we keep this as respectful as possible, that you all are a group of people who are working together every day. Most of you are working together somehow every day as farmers, as county planners, as people who are working with the above. So let's work on keeping it as respectful as possible, tone-wise, as we come together again. So I do appreciate the tone and the intention and the attention that you all have given to all of this. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I look forward to a spillover meeting to get the rest of the items